another episode of the Courtside Conference Podcast. I am your host, Sam Scott. With me today is the boss man, Derek.
What's going on? How you doing, bro?
And our special guest, Mr. Lederman from NBC Boston.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, how you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing pretty good, all things considered. I can't complain. It's a nice day for the Sixers, I'll tell you that.
Pretty good couple weeks for y'all.
Look, after, the last decade, it's anything really good. So.
Right. How's the family holding up?
Actually, pretty good. You can't really complain, but pretty blessed. The kids are, taking their situation in stride. My wife and I are both set up nicely remotely here, so can't really complain. How about you guys? Everything good?
Yes, sir. I'm hanging in there.
Oh yeah, I'm a homebody anyway, so I love it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Dreading going back to work tonight after my weekend off, as usual. Oh man. But your daughter got the online schooling set up from the house?
Yeah, so the 4-year-old's back in preschool in person, but the 8-year-old is fully remote for third grade. It's it seems tough, for us, but she's doing, no complaints.
Yeah.
She's getting through it. I mean, it's not exactly like it would be in person. It's definitely not as good, but we don't really have a choice. So
yeah, I feel that. That's good. Ready for this hectic day tomorrow?
I don't know if ready's the word. I'm just ready for Wednesday, to be honest. If I can get something, just sleep the whole day through tomorrow, that would be great. But you know what? We'll survive, hopefully.
Yes, sir. We always do. All right, that's good. But let's talk hoops now. What we came here for. So you're a Sixers fan, right?
I am, unfortunately. It's not a choice.
You from Philly?
I'm from Philadelphia. That's why Allen Iverson got me, and I've never looked back.
Gotcha. So around what year was that? Was that the MVP or the years prior to that he
so
got you
right
on
when
board?
they drafted him, I was in like 5th or 6th grade when they drafted him, and that's kind of the buzz started around the city. In Philly, it's really about the Eagles and then whatever team is good. So if the Eagles are bad, people still care about them. But the Sixers really kind of need to be good for them to have a big following. And Iverson was really exciting. He was crossing up Jordan, and then that strike shortened year is when I first really started following the team. And then, that led right into the finals around the MVP. And, that was pretty much the peak of Iverson in Philly. But, that one glorious year, it was great. And it was enough to hook me. So
definitely. Iverson was the first jersey I ever owned when I was a kid. That was like, I had the blue Sixers jersey when I was in like pre-K or something.
Oh, nice. Those are awesome. Yeah, I had an Iguodala blue one, but I lost it. And then I had another Iguodala that got mustard on it at a Celtics game.
Oh man.
And the Sixers were good at that point. This was like the early 2000s, and the Celtics were bad. It was before the big three, and the Sixers still lost. So
Philly wasn't like a basketball town in the 90s prior to drafting him, were they?
No, not that I remember. I remember going to games. I mean, we would go for school, for school trips. We got to go once. That was the first game I went to, and I had no idea even how to play basketball. I was just in yelling rebound. I didn't know what that meant. But, it was a fun adventure, and it's always been the Eagles there, like Randall Cunningham, even the Ray Rhodes era, Rodney Peete, all that stuff. People just only cared about the Eagles, and the Phillies were bad after the 92 season and the strike in baseball, and the Flyers too. The Flyers were always good. I mean, I was probably more of a Flyers fan, but the Sixers, really, Iverson's what ignited that passion in the city. And obviously the 80s, I was too little to remember.
Yeah, but they won the last title in the 80s, huh?
Yeah, no, and it was great rivalry with Boston, and also with the Lakers. So that's where I feel like I really connect with Celtics fans, is my hatred for the Lakers.
always working hard, always on. Glad to have another trooper on board for that one.
For sure.
But that's what's up, though. And what year that Iverson leave? Like 07, 08?
I think it was 05 or 06 maybe, or 06 or 07 when they traded him to Denver. I remember they re-signed him in 09.
I remember that one.
11/28 on November 28th. I remember it. It was also the day I got married, so that's why I really remember it.
Nice.
Like, it's the best day of my life. The Sixers re-signed Allen Iverson. But no, that's a fun way to remember it. So yeah, it was a couple years before they traded him for Andre Miller, and I don't remember what else, but it was a freaking disaster. The trade, I don't remember being terrible, but it was like it was his time to go. But it was there was just never any hope in Philly again until this new era came in, which is why I was always a supporter of the process, because to me it was like, just have a plan. Like, I don't care if it's to be bad. Like, just I need a direction, need a philosophy or plan, because it was still just like, let's just go do bad trades and try to get like a mediocre player and be the 8th seed and lose in the first round. And to me, that was just like, man, I love following draft prospects and stuff. Let's just be bad. Let's tank, and let's obsess over draft boards for all season instead of actually watching the team.
How did you feel that plan went according this year? Like, what do you think about that one?
Which one?
What do you think about the whole process? Yeah, with the roster this year.
Oh, this year was a disaster because, I don't know. I don't want to dunk on Elton Brand too much, because I just don't know who was making those decisions. But signing Al Horford, I mean, we all kind of convinced ourselves that was a good idea after, but nobody was like, man, the Sixers should sign Al Horford, because it just didn't make sense. It was, no, the Sixers should get more shooters. Yeah. I get that Al's a good shooter for a center, but he's not like JJ Redick.
He's not your primary shooter.
Exactly. And, it was just an awful fit. And then, Tobias's deal was bad, but at the end of the day, you traded all those assets. You probably have to keep them.
Yeah. It'll look even worse if they let him walk. Him and Jimmy.
The market is what sets that price. I still think if Moore is going to come in and move anybody, he'll probably try to move Al, because I think that, I think that Al can be good still. I don't think he's a bad basketball player now. I think that, he's overpaid, but, that just happens. And there's teams that can absorb that and really benefit from him. The Sixers just aren't that team. They just can't. He's just an absolute albatross on that team with that contract. So, and I think Tobias can work. He can still improve, and he's, got a great attitude, good locker room guy. He seems to be a hard worker, seems to really come back with a little bit improvement in certain areas every year. So it is what it is. I mean, we'll see. Daryl Morey could just blow the whole thing up for all we know. But
hey, buy Al Horford out of his contract. Let him come back home.
What about this? What about they won't do it because they don't want to help each other. But Gordon Hayward for Al Horford, that's not crazy. Someone jokingly tweeted that at me. I was like, look, that I think helps both teams. Because Al Horford off the Sixers. I mean, I don't know though. I think Gordon's valuable to the Celtics. I don't think they would trade him.
Yeah. But then we have Al Horford's like super big contract that he opted out, so we couldn't pay him. So.
Right. Well, I mean, look. Danny, I'm pretty sure if he was being honest, would have told Al, take that contract. Are you crazy? That's so much
Absolutely.
money.
I would have told him to take the contract.
10 times out of 10. It's not his fault.
If someone's off, Scal tells the story about when he was with the Nets out in free agency. He went back to, I think it was Rod Thorne at the time that was running the Nets, and said, hey, I got this contract offer from Danny Ainge and the Celtics. What do you think? And he was like, I think you're gonna have a great time in Boston. Just like, I'm not ever gonna offer you that much money. So you better sign that fast before they wake up and realize what they're doing. So, players got to, look out for, if you could sign for $109 million,
I would recommend it every time.
Single time.
Look, I would sign for $109,000. I would sign for $109. I mean,
Exactly. I feel that. It's a funny story about the day Horford signed in Philly on the first day of free agency. We were like talking in a group chat or whatever. My friend JJ, he was like, "Yeah, what if Al goes to Philly?" And this is like a couple hours before like the whole thing starts. It started like what 3 o'clock that day, I think.
Yeah,
I think so.
something like
Yeah,
it was 3 o'clock.
Al signed around like maybe 7-ish or so. He's like, so what if the Sixers are the mystery team on Horford? I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I was like, he doesn't fit, and they don't even have the money for that because they're gonna max out Harris. He's like, yeah, I know, but I'm just saying. Then like some hours later, we were just like kicking it, and then the Woj bond comes through. I was like, come on. He's like, see, I told you.
Oh man, we were on. We did a free agency special at NBC, and we were on for a couple hours, or maybe it was just an hour or so. No, we were definitely on for a couple hours because it wasn't that long after I went back to my desk after we were off air that the Woj bomb hit on our phones, and we're just like, oh, we got to go back on TV now. Al Horford just signed with the Sixers, and I'm with another. I work with another Sixers fan, and we're just like, oh, okay. I mean, at least he can't defend Embiid anymore.
Yeah, right.
But it was still at them. We were just like, I mean, I guess it's not bad, but none of us could have seen what a disaster. I mean, we should have, but we couldn't. What a disaster that fit would be, but we'll see.
Right. Always gotta wait and see. But you guys had a pretty eventful offseason. You fired your coach. You hired Doc Rivers. You got Daryl Morey. I thought y'all were gonna sign Mike D'Antoni, and I was really rooting for that one.
Yeah,
just so I get like some cheap laughs here and there.
It's funny because D'Antoni was an assistant for Brett Brown a couple of years ago before going to Houston, and there was pressure from ownership to fire Brett, and because they liked D'Antoni, but I think they just thought it would look too bad to kind of just dump Brett after he just suffered through all those bad rosters. So they gave him more than a fair chance to prove that he was worth keeping around, and he didn't end up finish. I think Brett seems like a great guy, but too many of the like rah speeches and that ring hollow after a while. You need to be able to back it up. And what I always told people, because before when Doc left the Clippers, I was texting my brother. I'm like, I want the Sixers to sign him so bad because he's a great motivator. Oh man, some of the stories that the 08 guys tell about all the little tricks or like the little tiny little things he would do that are just perfect. And he's got a ring. He's a good motivator, but he's not like in every conversation talking about the spirit of the team, blah, 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 like Brett Brown did. And he's great with the media. He's super nice. And he's a good coach. I mean, he's got, I think, some questions to answer about his playoff track record since leaving Boston, but I'm more than willing to accept that in Philly because they just needed somebody that's been there, that has guided a team full of alphas that maybe don't mix or didn't have a mix together before, getting them on the same page and take them to the promised land. And he did that in Boston. He didn't ultimately do that with LA, but he, the best run of Clippers basketball by far in their history was
him as coach.
Yeah. And then get Daryl Morey was just like, again, it was another one of those things where as soon as he left Houston, I was like, Sixers? Because if you had asked me before he was available, what person would you want to, if you could pick anybody to fix that roster? I think Masai is probably the best GM right now in basketball, but Daryl Morey, I think, is the best for the task of fixing the Sixers, because how many times do we think that he was stuck with a certain type of roster in Houston? And he just
took a Houston roster at least every other year, maybe.
Yeah, and he signed like 1 year he signed like 7 unguaranteed guys, then immediately traded them to the Clippers for Chris Paul, and then the Clippers could just let them go because their guarantee ran out. And it was just so genius, like some of those little tricks he pulled to be able to reset his roster around Harden a couple different times. And
especially the post Dwight years. how fast of a turnaround that was from them being, what was the 8th seed, I think his last year there, to them winning, back to winning 50 games. And Harden was a MVP guy again. So
yeah, no, I mean, we how many times did we count them out? And even this year, and people are always like, you know, a lot of the talking about the Morey hiring about like this Sixers roster is like the exact opposite of what he had in Houston. Is he going to still try to run like the small ball and stuff? And I think what he was good at is not just like a philosophy in a certain way you have to play, but in just maximizing what he had on his roster. And he really leaned into small ball, the micro ball, with PJ Tucker at center, Robert Covington at center. Obviously, he's not going to do that in Philly because, you know, your best player is a center. So, I mean, I'm interested to see what he does. You know, I don't think he's a one-trick pony, only small ball, because that's just simply not going to work.
No.
Yeah. Because you have a point guard who's like literally the opposite of James Harden, who can't shoot. Harden was, you know, is like one of the most lethal shooters ever. And Ben Simmons won't shoot. Not only can't shoot, he won't. You know, I'm interested to see what they do, but I think the main focus needs to be finding a way to free up some space by moving Al Horford. And I know people are going to talk about moving Tobias, but Tobias is a guy I think that gets moved if you're trading one of the stars, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
So let's say this coming season ends pretty much in disappointment again. Are you trading one of the big two?
I'm not, but they are for sure. I bet. You know, I see what you're saying. I wouldn't, because I'm a fan. You know, I'm not locked.
Yeah. But I feel like you shouldn't. I feel like you shouldn't have such a short leash with them, since they are relatively young. Simmons is like 23, 24, same age as Jalen, I think.
I think so.
And Embiid is 27 this year.
Yep, I think at the end of the year he'll be 27.
Yeah, so even like if it's not working, you still should probably still try to get those best years out of Joel, at least until he's 30. Like, just, I mean, to like, what's really the end goal if you do move him though?
Right. I think that it would be really difficult for that franchise to move Embiid. I know Simmons is a little bit of a hot and cold relationship with the fan base, but I mean, Embiid is beloved. He'll get dunked on by, you know, talk radio guys, because that's just how it is in most cities. But you know, for conditioning and stuff like that. But he's just so good. He's you know, he is one of the, and Simmons is the chance to as well be one of the best Sixers ever. Which on that franchise is, you know, that's saying a lot. That's like when we talk about Tatum, you know, all the things he's doing. Like, he's like, you can almost already, you know, put a 0 up in the rafters. I mean, that's how good he is, how his trajectory is. And that's like Embiid and Simmons, and especially Embiid. Like, Kevin McHale was on one of the broadcasts this past season, you know, just talking about how, you know, if Joe wins like all he needs to do is win one championship, and there's a statue, you know, outside this arena, sure. You know.
And all he has to do is make the finals, and he gets the Iverson-esque type love too, if he just gets there one time.
Exactly. I mean, that it does not take much. It's not Boston. It's like, it's you better win, and you better win a lot, or you know, there's just so many championships. But in Philly, there's not a lot. You know, I'm curious to see what happens with the Eagles if the honeymoon is finally over after that Super Bowl. But
I feel like we sold our souls to get that championship. It's really bad.
Yeah.
I felt bad for the nation watching that game last night.
Oh boy, it was gross. Carson was horrible. I tell you, Carson. I know we're off topic here, but Carson Wentz reminds me a lot of Andrew Luck with the Colts, where it was like this really super hot, promising prospect starting, like, oh my God, that's the next Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, and then no offensive line, injuries, and just keep getting judged by his poor play. But, you know, and Carson's making some bad throws for sure, but God, he's pressured. They had a graphic on Sunday Night Football where it just showed he's by far the most hit and pressured quarterback in the entire league.
Yeah.
For sure.
And the year y'all did win it, he was on fire before he got hurt that year.
For sure.
Right. I gave up on the season when he got hurt. I was like, our MVP's injured. We're getting ready for next year. and then they won the first series or the first round against Atlanta. I think that's what it was, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's cute, this is adorable.
That's the Hawks. I mean, it's
Right.
the Falcons.
Right, and then it was, I think it was the Vikings next. It was like, and there was like a conference championship game. It's like, all right, well now we're in it. And then it was the Patriots. I'm like, all right, they're not going to win. I'm not even going to watch. This is going to be whatever. And then they won. Of course I watched, but I'm still not sure they actually won. I still don't believe it. But
yeah.
So
if Ben and Joel were to get one, would that top the Super Bowl for you?
Yeah, it would. But that's not normal. I'm different. I think everyone wanted the Eagles. Like when the Phillies won, I remember, that was the first championship of my life when the Phillies won in 2008. And I just remember being like, this is great and all, but it doesn't feel like I wanted either like a Flyers Stanley Cup or a Sixers championship. And obviously the Eagles, I wanted a Super Bowl, but for some reason I've just always been more into into basketball, into the Sixers specifically, especially with the process and everything. Like it just feels like we've grown together, me and the Sixers, through the tanking, through all those hard years. Although I got league pass to watch the Warriors, not to watch Nerlens Noel and Joel and Jahlil Okafor. So
oh man,
I could opt out of watching. The poor fans that were like season ticket holders, not so much.
Yeah.
Right. I have a coworker who's a Sixers fan. He was telling me that this season he kind of like clocked out about midway through, so it just wasn't any fun watching.
It did. It was challenging at times, but what's nice is that the Sixers and the Celtics play at the same time almost every night. So I DVR either DVR the Sixers if they're on TV, or I just watch it on League Pass after the Celtics game. But I know what happened, so if they lose, I just don't watch. So it was great for me. I only saw them win,
Right,
except when they played the Celtics.
Well, y'all beat us the first 3 times of the season. That one loss was
Yeah.
like super miserable like that. So I think it was the one in Philly, the second one where we blew like the lead, just unprovoked blew the lead at that.
Yeah, I tell you though, I gave, and everyone was worried about that matchup in the first round. I said, no, do not worry about the Sixers. They are not a threat.
Yeah.
Look at the season.
I was worried. Yeah, I was worried till you guys started to implode a bit out the blue. And then when Simmons went down, I was like, yeah, this is no bad. If he would have been healthy, I would have been kind of worried though.
I wasn't.
Yeah, but to me, it was
whatsoever.
It was always about Brett Brown versus Brad Stevens. To me, that is the thing, and especially when Ben. I mean, he was the first one to remember the picture "Shoot a Three Coward," on the shirts with Horford so far away from Simmons. Like he was like the first guy to do that, to be like, all right, well, if you're not going to shoot threes, then we're not going to cover you out of the perimeter. And look, I just trusted Brad versus Brett Brown like 1,000 times out of 1,000. And that last game that the Celtics won, I felt more impactful to me. It felt like a more real assessment of the two teams than the 3 previous ones. So, because opening night was opening night, and then you had one Embiid game where he was just a friggin' it was insane. After Charles Barkley called him out and everything on TNT, and so he was all up for it. And I'm like, you're just not going to get that. You may get that from Embiid, but the rest of the team clicking, hitting all these threes and stuff, it just felt fluky. So I just felt like the Celtics were a better team than they were, for sure. And we'll see moving forward, but I just was never buying into that. I mean, when people say we need to, upgrade at center, who's going to cover Embiid, I'm like, well, there's just nobody really that does cover Embiid, and the Sixers still haven't won. So to me, it's like that doesn't really matter as much, especially if he's just shooting down low. I mean, if the 3-point shooter that you can't cover, that's a problem. But when it's big like that, I think it's a little bit easier to game plan against.
Sure.
The one thing I think Doc will do, if like nothing else, that Brett Brown, I think he'll find like a better balance between Ben and Joel that Brett Brown kind of struggled to find the last 2 years. I feel like he had it the first year they were together though. But then with all the roster moves and pressure to win now, it kind of got lost in the mix somewhere. To where if Simmons is off the court, then Embiid is super dominant. Then if Simmons is on the court and Embiid's gone, then Simmons gets free reign to do his game. And I feel that they coexisted really, like I said, really, really well that first year. But then this past season, it really, really got tangled up because the roster didn't do that many favors, either having no real spacing or shooters between them.
Yeah, and I think I think that Joe, he was such a beast the year before, not this past season, the season before. And I think that he kind of took a step to being a superstar and kind of just was like, all right, this is my team. I'm the alpha. And I agree. I think that it should go through Embiid, but and then Ben not shooting, I think really, really rubbed people the wrong way on the team because, the coach is out there literally saying to the media, I want him to average at least a 3 a game.
Yeah.
For the rest of the season, I want him to shoot a 3, at least 1 a night. And he didn't shoot, he shot like 2 the rest of the season. Like the entire rest of the season.
And then if he's not shooting, then Embiid kind of has to play further out the paint than he really needs to be. And then he's forced to take some silly 3 every so often or some questionable mid-range shot just because that's kind of where he has to be at by default. Because with him, Horford, and Simmons, it's like,
bad.
So bad.
So gross. I can't believe that we tricked ourselves into thinking that was a good idea.
Right. I think y'all I feel like y'all had the formula at least 2 or 3 times, but then they just wouldn't stick with it. Like the Jimmy Butler team.
Oh yeah.
I thought that big 3 was going to be special. Especially you just kept shooters between him, between Ben, Joel, and Jimmy, and then y'all traded for Tobias, and then that's when it kind of started to get a little wonky for me.
Yeah, the Tobias trade was super unnecessary. I think that I remember it was the day before the deadline. It was at midnight. Getting a Woj alert on my phone and being like, "What? I mean, cool." And then I look at what they traded. I'm like, "Wow, they better win a championship this year."
Exactly. I feel like separately, if they both happened independently and didn't if y'all only traded for Jimmy and never traded for Tobias, it'd be good. And if y'all only traded for Tobias and never for Jimmy, it'd be good. But then both together didn't really make a lot of sense. So you'd have really been cap strapped if you paid both of them.
Well, I think that's the thing is if you're going to do that, you better bring them both back or at least pick the good one or the alpha star. And I think Butler was a lot more of an issue in the locker room than people really talk about, at least for he just doesn't care. He wants to win, and he's Michael Jordan without the championships, a real abrasive win at all costs. I will slit your throat. I don't care who you are. Mentality, which obviously is going to rub people the wrong way, but fits really well in Miami in that culture. But with Brett Brown, smoking a peace pipe before every game, talking kumbaya and all this stuff, and Jimmy Butler calling him out to his face in front of the team. I think that was an issue, and that I think that's why they didn't go after. They chose Tobias over Jimmy, and I think Jimmy probably wanted to leave anyway. But boy, that's a tough one. That's a tough one because you're right. He was the guy that actually handle the basketball and shoot threes. Not great, but he would shoot.
And that's
them.
what y'all need is that off the dribble scoring threat between Ben and Joel, since Ben won't shoot and he's more pass first guy anyway. And I think
we got Shake Milton. That's fine.
He got Shake Milton. And I really do like Ben's game next to Embiid, even though I feel like Embiid isn't the perfect fit next to him.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry. No, you don't. But yeah, I really do. Because Embiid doesn't need to be super ball dominant throughout the course of a full game because he doesn't make the best decisions when he has to pass out or create for anybody else.
Right.
So he can eat. So I think I said this somewhere today. I think Embiid can be your best player, but he doesn't need to be the lead guy to a sense. You don't want him having the most. You don't want him having the most touches over the course of the full game.
Right.
You don't want just spam it to him all game in the post and say go do something.
Right. He's not Jokic. He's not Jokic who can get other people
exactly.
You can run everything through him. I think your offense should be built around the talented center that you have, but not every play needs to have him touch the ball and decide what to do. I think especially Ben's value is passing,
rebounding, defending, transition, and Joel's such a dominating presence on both ends when he's really locked into. Remember, he was top 3 defensive player of the year not too long ago.
Yeah, he's absolute beast.
And I think he's that type of guy who just changes the whole game plan when he's on the floor. So you don't need to give him that many touches. He can go out there and rebound and create extra touches and get to the free throw and lock in defensively and create extra possessions for y'all or get things going in transition for Ben. Then to where if y'all had that other perimeter threat, then there's no more doubles for Joel to where he doesn't have to be forced to make those decisions passing out and so forth.
100%. And I think that that's what they're going to try to do. It's going to be tricky, but like I said, I think Daryl Morey's the guy that I would trust.
He's going to be super aggressive with it.
And we'll see what he does before next season. He may make 1 or 2 moves. We'll see, but I don't anticipate him trading one of Ben or Joe at least before this season. But again, with him, you just don't know, especially because he comes in with no attachment to anybody on the team.
Right.
He can come in and be like, I built this, perennial winner down in Houston. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. And you can trade one, but I just don't know what you're going to get back for. You're just never going to win that trade.
Exactly.
So, do you think that that extending Elton Brand was the right move?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like what they did with Brett, where it was like you weren't really put in a great position to succeed. Yeah. So we're not going to do you dirty like this. I mean, they hired someone above him. We hired a new boss, and he's now the decision maker. But I think they believe in him growing into a future top executive. Everyone just raves about him as a person. He's got great relationships with agents and players around the league. But he made some pretty bad moves, or at least his name was on some pretty bad moves. And, but again, to me, it was like, I don't necessarily have an issue with him. I have an issue with the owners and all of the little Colangelo spies that got left over that were still kind of pulling strings here and there. And I just purge that system, just flush them all out. And Elton, I don't equate him with Colangelo. So.
Yeah. And Morey had a good quote, like not too long ago before I actually started this podcast, was like as I started today's episode. He said, you don't build guys to play within a set system, you build the system around the talent of the guys, which is admittedly kind of like contradictory to the last couple of years in Houston. But he's right though.
Well, he built it around Harden, and that was was his guy. And we'll see. And that's I just don't think you can't replicate what he did down there. I mean, people are saying, "Oh, trade Ben or Joe for Harden." But even then, it's like you still need Covington, PJ Tucker. You need
exactly.
I don't know about Westbrook, but you just you need another star there. To me, it's like see what you can do in Philly with what you have. Try to get out of the roster just hell that you're in, and see if you can find like just more complementary pieces for the two guys that you have, and see if maybe Doc can work some of his magic on Ben and get him to shoot some freaking threes. Because Kevin Love had a great Abby Chin asked we had a one-on-one with Kevin Love like 5 years ago when he was just having his breakout season, or like the year after his breakout season with the Timberwolves. So maybe it was 6 or 7 years ago. I don't know. Time is a flat circle. But Jared Sullinger had started shooting threes, and Abby asked Kevin Love, what are some tips that you would give someone like Jared Sullinger, who's a big, who's starting to shoot threes? And Kevin Love, I'll never forget this. He said, don't wait till the summer. Practice now, shoot them now. Just be okay with misses. Because there's just, you don't have to wait until like, all right, well, I don't want to screw up my game now. Just do it now. It's part of your game. You need to get used to shooting them in games. It was like such a great answer. And I wish that someone would talk to Ben Simmons about that. Like, don't wait until the summer where you're with, your Instagram cameras and everything. Just get, the perfect workout videos. Just shoot them in games. Miss. It's okay.
It's okay. He doesn't have to make them.
I think Marcus Smart did that.
Yeah, the threat of him shooting just has to be there.
Great example. Marcus Smart, who's the Celtics record holder for threes in a game, who literally won them playoff games shooting threes. Who was for the first 3 years of his career the worst 3-point shooter in NBA history with that volume. And now he's a league average shooter. And you add that to his defense, and he's like an incredibly valuable player. And Ben Simmons, elite defensively. So awful shooter. And to me, too, it's also not even just about the threes. It's about free throws. Yes. Man, that is something, especially in Philly, you will not get forgiven for. Yeah. If this fat guy that lives down the street at the corner can go to the park and practice free throws and become a better free throw shooter than you, then that means that you're not working on it. Like, that's all that means. So I think that he needs to just work on his mechanics. I don't know. Everyone talks about him shooting the wrong hand. I'm pretty sure he does. But it might be a little too late for that. Just get good with your offhand then.
Exactly. Just take the shots.
Yeah. I was about to say, like, do you think that right where you are right now with Ben Simmons, that he's, I don't want to say the finished product, but like in terms of adding another element to his game, like he's already at the peak? Do you think he can actually add the shooting? Because what I was hearing was that he was being told to shoot in high school and refused doing that through high school and college to now in being in the NBA, whereas it's still the same thing.
You know, I don't have a lot of confidence. So no, I don't. Yes, I do think he's probably a finished product in terms of that, but I hope he's not. I think that, you know, I'm not like, I'm in my mid-30s. I'm not a finished product. I try to get better at everything I do. You know, I'm playing Nintendo Switch with my daughter. I'm trying to, you know, get really good at, you know, Smash Brothers. All right, because I want to beat these little bastards on the internet. All right. Okay, you know, but so I want to get better, and I think that everyone should, and I think that he should add. He's so young, but you're right. It seems like a mental issue with him. It really does. It seems like it's something that, like a hurdle, a block. But look, look, if he needs to see a sports psychiatrist, they have them. They're incredibly common. Every team employs them. He needs to try, you know, go, you know, eat some peyote and have a seance in the desert or something. I don't know, but he needs to come to the point where it, like, people just need to hammer into his head, like, it's okay to miss. You just need to get used to shooting. You just need to get used to that being a part of your game, because no matter what a coach tells a team when they're defending, you know, don't worry about Ben Simmons, he's not a shooter. They've been hammered their entire life. When you see your guy going up to shoot, hands up. So even if they've been told, there will be that split second of hesitation. And that's all someone like Ben Simmons needs. So that's all that you need to just pull a guy an inch closer to you, get a little bit more space for a teammate. I just think that there's so much value in the attempt. And that's why when people would complain about Sullinger shooting threes, and Kelly Olynyk shooting threes, and Marcus Smart shooting threes, I always said, man, look, Brad Stevens is really smart. He wouldn't let them do that if it was bad. Like, they find value in the attempt because it's opening things up for other guys.
And this isn't Doc's first go round. Remember, Rondo couldn't shoot at all them early years, and he still was empowered to, whenever he got in rhythm or he got left open, to take the midi or step back and take the three. He even has like a couple of daggers from three back during those days.
Absolutely. Rondo's a great example, and Rondo's a great example because he was also a difficult guy for a coach, especially two point guards butting heads. So, well, I mean, that's Doc. Like, a lot of people wanted the Sixers to get a hard ass coach. They didn't want another players coach like Brett Brown, and Doc is a players coach, but he's not soft. Like, he'll hold you accountable, and I would love. And I wonder if. So Ben Simmons had a relationship with Brett Brown from when he was younger, because Brett coached his dad in Australia. So it's like, to me, that almost hurt. Like, I felt like Ben just was too comfortable with Brett, where he could just ignore him. And I think that Brett probably, look, it's real. You can't bench your star point guard, but also you should sometimes. I think that we'll see what Doc does. I think benching is extreme, but there should be some sort of consequence. If you're open and you don't shoot a three and we lose by 2 points, or just lose at all, you know, you're in trouble. Like there needs to be something more than what they were doing before, because if again, and it's not like he's got way less value than he's worth in terms of the trades because of his shooting, because of the mental hurdle, because of the mental roadblock.
Yeah.
Teams don't want that. They want every player on the court to be able to shoot threes, or at least shoot them when they're open, even if they're bad, even if they miss. There's the Cantor shot threes.
And I think sometimes it's like for players who are like Ben, who are the super high IQ guys, I feel like sometimes when they have a coach who they deem as less smart than them, that they kind of ignore their suggestions or ignore some things they say. Like with Chris Paul, I think when we first got to LA, there used to be like the little rumblings or articles about he thinks he's smarter than Vinny Del Negro and doesn't listen to him, and that's a problem. Or I think we saw LeBron sometimes was like, but yeah, with David Black, he would just blow him off sometimes. But then when Ty Lue came in there, he earned that respect. When Doc got to LA, he earned Chris Paul's respect. Doc fought with Rondo, teeth and nail every year, and they still flourish together. So
yeah, absolutely.
I think that would be good for him too.
I think it's a good. It's weird because the Sixers ownership has made like some really awful choices in the past couple of years that it's like I just can't even believe it. My brother texted me a picture of Doc and Morey together. He's like, I still can't believe this, and I can't. It's crazy. But it's like the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. You know, I'm still not really sure it's real, but it feels really good right now. You know, it's all on paper though. They still have a terrible roster. Like I don't care. You get Phil Jackson, you get Red Auerbach coaching the Sixers with that roster, and they wouldn't win a championship. So they still got to prove it, but at least there's hope. And look, you know, it's not necessarily like encouraging for Celtics fans, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't worry. The Celtics are still, until the Sixers prove to be formidable in the postseason, I think the Celtics are fine.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, you're right. I was crap. I had a brain fart just now. Crap.
Yeah.
Oh, but and that's what I was gonna say. I think and if they both buy in, I think Embiid has bought in easier than been in the past throughout their tenure together too. So I feel like this year, if both of them finally fully buy in 100%, that there's like a culture, a whole 180 that they have to.
100%, and especially look, I can't remember who said. I think it was one of the Sixers podcasters that I listened to that said, "I just want one Instagram video of Ben and Joe working out together in the offseason." Like I know now it's a little bit hard for that, you know, with the pandemic, but it would just do wonders. I think for them to just put on that outward appearance of, you know, really caring about doing it together, you know, because that's what we want. We don't want just one superstar. What's great, the process, the years of tanking was to get stars, and that's what they did.
For sure.
Right.
They got 2 of them.
Do you think Hinkie got shafted?
Yeah. Oh, knifed right in the back. And it's the Celtics, or it's Boston's fault, because if Okafor had gotten to that fight in Boston, you know,
I remember that.
But no, yeah, he got shafted. He did. Who knows what would have, if he would have been good at building a winner. He was great at building teams, or at identifying, you know, some players that other teams hadn't really or had given up on or hadn't given a shot to, like the McConnells, the Robert Covingtons of the world. You know, they drafted Jeremy Grant. There's countless players that were slept on by other executives that they got a chance because Hinkie was not trying to build a winner. He was trying to build a team that was bad, that wouldn't win games, so that they could get more and more draft assets and better draft odds and try to hit a home run in the. And the reason that it worked is because Okafor is a great example. He was a bad pick, but when you have so many, it's okay because you still got Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. So,
right.
And you know, Nerlens Noel didn't work out, but at the end of the day, those are the kind of moves that you can make when you have years to tank and lots of picks. So, yeah, he got.
You're not playing for anything, so.
Right. So, and it's hard to switch the culture around. So it's actually kind of incredible when they did make the playoffs that first year when they lost to the Celtics. It was like people forgot that they were just the year before they won like 25 games. It's like they were a bad team. You know, and Markelle Fultz was a disaster, but at the end of the day, Hinkie set them up with so many assets, and it's frustrating as a fan to see how they've squandered them. But also at the end of the day, look, they still have Embiid, they still have Simmons, and now they got Hinkie's boss in Houston, Daryl Morey, running the show. So,
right.
Do you have a list of free agents you would like to target?
No, because I just assume that they can't get anyone. I haven't even looked. You know, it's one of those like I just who could they afford? You know, I think it's all gonna be via trades, draft night maybe, move their pick. We'll see. I think.
What pick do y'all have in the first round? Like the 20s something?
20, early 20s. I'm not sure the exact, like 20, 21, 22, something like that, because they got the Thunder's pick.
Yeah. So wait, so is that y'all only pick? Y'all have 2 first rounders?
That's the only pick.
Okay. Well, it's just something else. So.
And we'll see. You know, last year they made a great pick with Thibault, but Ainge read Brand. I mean, Brand was telling everyone that would ask, "Oh yeah, we want Matisse Thibault." So Ainge was like, "Oh, you do? Well, I'm going to take him. I'll take the first pick in the second round, please." And you know, we'll see if Carson ends up working out. But that trade was an example of why it was so dysfunctional. It was so frustrating being a Sixers fan, because like you can't like tell everyone who you're going to pick, because then a GM like Danny, who's got all these first round picks, is like, look, if we end up getting stuck with Thibault, well, you know. And sure enough, the Sixers bit and gave more assets away. And Thibault, I think, is going to be, you know, a really good player, but
yeah, great defender.
We'll see if he can do anything else. But again, like I think he is who he is. He may get a little bit better offensively, a little bit more consistent shooting, and hopefully a little bit better handle. But they got him to be just Brian Dawkins on defense, you know, just ball hawk and mix things up.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have a list of draft prospects or anything? So I'm pretty out the loop on this draft. So,
you know, it just started looking at draft stuff. I don't have a list, but we have our preview show, I think, in a week. So this is my big prep week for all the draft stuff. So I have not don't have a huge list for that range, because I know it's not a great draft at the top, but it's apparently pretty deep, and deep with players that the Sixers need. I like Cole Anthony from North Carolina, Greg Anthony's kid. I have a couple mocks where he goes to the Sixers, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. I've seen somewhere he goes to the Celtics too.
Yeah.
I think he would be a great fit with the Celtics as well. People for some reason are really down on him, because like it was 1 year, and he's the kind of player that Danny wouldn't have any issues drafting, because I remember Jalen didn't shoot great his 1 year at Cal. And
Jalen was such a reach.
Well, and Danny in the all the press conferences afterwards, like, well, look, we've been scouting these guys since they're in middle school. You know, like, we believe in his shot. We believe he's a good shooter. He had a down year, and I think that's the deal with Cole Anthony. I think he just had a down year on a weird team.
But he was he started out on fire the first couple of games of the season, though, didn't he? Before he got hurt.
Yeah, he did. He was. I remember just being like, whoa, he's an NBA player for sure. And then he's just kind of like, people have soured on him. But to me, I think that he could be a guy that falls a little bit. I don't know what his potential is. I got to watch all his YouTube videos to really do my breakdown, because I only watched the pot. Like, remember Draft Express used to be awesome. You could watch pros and cons. I would always skip the weaknesses. I want to see the strengths. I want to be positive. I want to see, you know, who's gonna be great. I remember seeing OG Ananobi's and being like, that's Draymond Green right there. And sure enough, I mean, he may not be Draymond Green, but he
might be better.
Right.
Yeah.
At this point, he's a special player. And I think that whereas every Sixers pick, I'll be like, I'm looking at the weakness video. Oh, Okafor can't cover pick and rolls. What are we gonna do? So, but no, I'll do some video breakdowns. I don't have a great handle on who I want either the Sixers or Celtics to take, but Cole Anthony's the one guy I'm keep my eye on.
Okay, what's up with the kid who went overseas instead of going to college? Hampton.
RJ Hampton, I've seen.
What's his deal? Is there? I haven't heard much buzz about him. Is people high on him? Low? You know, I've seen some.
I think people are low on him. He was originally one of the top guys. In the class, but he didn't play good. And I think a lot of people are saying, well, just because he was like touted and he's athletic, he just doesn't play basketball that good. And those are the kind of players that never really end up working out. The ones that are like, they've got all the tools, but they're not actually good basketball players. Like, remember James Young? James Young had the most beautiful shot, but the ball never went in the basket. That was the only problem. The only issue with James Young is that his beautiful shot never resulted in an actual made basket.
Yeah. He didn't work on anything but his shot.
Right.
I was so convinced he was going to work out.
Yeah, look, we all were, but it's not how it was working.
That happens. And to piggyback back to Okafor, I feel like Okafor was a good pick, but I got stuck in the wrong era of basketball too.
Yeah. No,
I feel like the shift happened like at the worst possible time for him. So had this been like 5-6 years ago where you like feed post up bids all game long, he would have been awesome. But then he got drafted like right in the middle of the 3-point revolution. So
the analogy I made was it's like drafting a big like him was like having great handwriting. You know, that's beautiful penmanship, but it's way more efficient to just send an email, right?
Yeah.
Just type it up. It's nice. It's a cool thing to be able to, write a nice letter and send it to someone. But at the end of the day, just type, just send an email. So, and it ended up being worse than I thought because even his offense, I think that he was not as good a passer as we thought he was going to be. I don't know. He had a little bit of flash with the Pelicans, not this past year, the year before. But,
he wasn't as agile as he needed to be for like consistent NBA level ball either, especially for like a big guy.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a bad one, especially Porzingis went right after him.
Yeah. I thought Noel would be a good one too.
I think Noel would have been better if he was in a better spot. His problem was attitude. I think that he kind of just thought that he was the guy. He thought he was KG out there. And look, he was special, I thought, defensively, just instinctually, just great.
I think he still could be there too if he just bought into the right spot.
Right, and he needs to understand his role, and I think that he'll get that. But that, like, my daughter will occasionally, the 8-year-old will occasionally be like, "Remember Nerlens? Remember the eraser?" Because I like trained her that was her favorite player. I'm like, no, we don't talk about Nerlens anymore. we Daddy was wrong. He did not end up being good, but he was our first favorite because she liked his flat top. Looked like an eraser.
Yeah.
Nerlens is the only guy who fumbled the bag when the role players were being overpaid.
Boy, he did fire his agent, but boy, that guy should go to jail. The contract he turned down was like $80 million, something like that.
So he was shooting for the mats.
Yeah.
And then Mark Cuban was like, no.
What are we talking about?
The one owner or GO, whatever, who absolutely would not budge. You tried to bully into the mass contract. He's like, not a chance, dude.
I mean, I thought, I always thought he would be a good fit with the Celtics, but in like a Robert Williams type role, or more minutes than Robert Williams is playing, but like just like maybe not your starting center, but a center that can come in and just impact the game because of his shot blocking.
I'll take him. And every time I've mentioned like a free agent suggestion for at least like 3 years now, I get like 6 mentions of like Nerlens. So the fans want him, and he's from Massachusetts at that. So
but I don't know if that's a good thing. I think he seems like the kind of guy that maybe you want to keep away from all his friends from high school. I don't know, because some guys it works great and some guys it doesn't. But he would have been. Back when he was young, if he had come up, like, that's the thing about the process is that who knows the damage that it did to some of these young players to not, they all tried hard. They literally like GPS tracked them to make sure that their speed was what their like average is. Like they basically knew if they were loafing. So in games and everything, they tried really hard, but they weren't idiots. They knew that the roster was not constructed to win games. So even though they were forced to try hard to win the game during the game, they knew that the philosophy of the organization was to be bad. So
Right.
I mean, that's tough to overcome for a young guy, especially a kid that was not mature enough, I think, to be in that role, and who would be. But it does seem to have impacted him pretty negatively.
Yeah, especially because you're in that position, you're not supposed to win, but you want to come in and make a name for yourself, especially when you're the highly touted guy since high school, or the top college prospect was supposed to be a number one pick. And then you get in a position where you've been trying to win all your life, and now they're like, lose. It's like, come again?
I know. That's why Okafor, I think he threw his jersey down when they drafted him. He was disgusted.
Okafor was coming off a college championship.
My phone is gonna die, so I'm just gonna put my charger in here. So my audio is gonna change a little bit. Did it get worse?
No, we can hear you pretty well.
All right, good. Sorry.
No, you're good.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I think that's a tough challenge, but at the end of the day, it's all in the past. It got the assets. When people say, did the process work? I think it did. I think the goal was to get stars, and it did. I mean, the goal was ultimately to win a championship, but Pinky didn't have a chance.
Yeah.
And who knows what he would have done? Like I said before, like he could have been terrible at trying to build a winner, but he was great at building bad teams and getting assets and trades. Some of the trades, the Kings trade, the pick that the Sixers traded the Celtics for the number one was from just a glorious, just absolute thief or robbery of Vlade Divac and the Kings.
That was the Romeo pick we used on Romeo, right?
Yeah, so you got that and the Tatum pick, because the Sixers had a pick swap. So the Sixers finished 5, and the Kings finished 3rd, but they had the right to swap. So they swapped 3, but they had 2 other Kings picks because the Kings were trying to like shed salary, and Hinkie was like, "Cool, we'll take Nick Stauskas and 80 first-round picks from you to absorb these contracts." It was pretty bad for the Kings, but it just shows you there's certain teams, and I think the Sixers ownership was worried that Elton Brand was turning into this, where other GMs, the really smart ones, will start targeting them and be like, "Oh, what do you guys need? Well, let me help you out here," and they end up just stealing stuff from you. So, like Ainge did with the Thibault pick last year. So, and when the Sixers made that trade with the Celtics to move up to get Fultz, I was like, man, this is too good to be true. And I tweeted that day. I was like, I am uncomfortable with Brian Colangelo trading with Danny Ainge. Just not comfortable. Ainge does not lose trades very often. So
I was kind of scared. I thought I was scared Fultz was going to like blow up too when he first started playing that rookie season. Yeah. He had the triple double like 2 weeks later. It's like, dang, this kid might be a problem.
Right.
Like good thing for Kyrie.
He was special. Watching him at Washington, it was like, this is James Harden.
Yeah,
right?
This is what we thought D'Angelo Russell was going to be. This is like an athletic Brandon Roy. This is like the perfect player for this team. And then I don't know what happened.
Do you think they gave up on him too fast? It looked like he was starting to slowly but surely get build his level of play back up in Orlando.
Yeah, I hate the trade that they did. I don't think he ever would have been able to do it in Philly. It's too hard of a market. He's sensitive. He's different. He's a different kid, but he's nice. And, and I think that it was just too much of an ask for that team at that time to be like, all right, you need to be the guy that is the final puzzle piece, and we're going to try to win a championship now.
Especially given his injuries, he had to keep dealing through and reworking his jumper. So
the jumper, is so much scrutiny on that. I hated the trade at the time. I'm like, at least wait until the offseason. There was no rush to me to do that. That's when I really worried about Brett having too much control of that franchise, because, I knew that Jonathan Simmons was a Brett guy. Brett loved him in San Antonio, and he was just absolute garbage. Excuse me. He was so bad. And they called it a first-round pick. It was like, that's not a first-round pick. It's a first round pick that has protections on that guarantees it to be a second. So get out of here with that nonsense. And he was the first pick in the freaking draft a year ago.
Right.
So it was an awful trade. I think that it's good for him that he moved on, and we've washed our hands of it as well. But that was such a stupid trade. They should have waited till the offseason.
Yeah, you could tell his confidence was like shot while he was there too. So it's a good thing they did. That's a good thing he did get out, and he's trying to, like I said, rebuild himself, and he's a starter level player at the very least at the moment. So
yeah, I went before the pandemic. I went back. I on NBA.com. I watched every single made field goal he had this year, and it was just it was just nice to see. The shot is still really weird. But his when he gets into the mid range, it looks way more normal, and he's still incredibly sneaky, athletic, and long. Like he dunks everything. And they come out of nowhere and they're like posters on dudes. Like you just it's jarring. So he's he's a special.
He's gonna get there. I think he'll eventually get somewhere close to his pre-draft height, but maybe not the franchise changing star. But I think he'll be a really, really great player at some point in the next couple of years.
Yeah, he's young. He's got a chance.
Definitely. He looks really aggressive whenever you see his highlights come across too. So.
Yep, I'm pulling for him.
Yeah, same here. Good job. Well, so you work at NBC Boston. So when did you get there exactly?
So
Go ahead.
Let's say back in 2010. Excuse me, 2010. It was Comcast Sportsnet. I started freelance editing there. I worked at Nesson in the mid 2000s as part of my co-op at Northeastern University, and then I got hired there after college. I left there and was working at a different website company. It was really awful, talking about IT stuff like Windows. Just real work, you know what I mean? Like actual
right.
So I had to I wanted to get back into TV and sports TV. So I had connections from my time at Nesson that worked at what was then Comcast Sportsnet. I reached out, I applied for a couple jobs, didn't get them, but they brought me in as a freelance editor, and that's how I got my foot in the door. And I've been there ever since.
Cool. How is that working there after years of being the Philly guy, and now you're in the rival market?
I mean, it was great when the Sixers were not trying to win. It was it didn't happen at all. And occasionally there'd be some Flyers and Bruins playoff meetings that were pretty intense. And that was back when I was really gung-ho still about the Flyers. I mean, I tell you, as I've gotten older and a parent, I'm like, I take a step, and I think just you get jaded a little bit being in the industry as long as I have been. And you start rooting for a result you're not rooting for a specific result. You just want the game to end. You're like, look, I want my team to win, but at the end of the day, I just want it to end before this freaking show so we can get these highlights edited and we can go home. We don't have to retape anything. But it was fine. And it is still fine. I mean, it at the end of the day, when they play each other, when the Philly and the Boston teams play each other, I'm indifferent. I don't impact the outcome. I'm really good at being, objective and professional during the games, and I don't really have a chance to be, opinionated too much to make it be negative for our TV show. I'm just, at the end of the games, the thing with basketball is that you can't have anything done until the final, until the buzzer at the end, and so we have to update so many graphics really fast. So I don't have a chance to be like, oh man, I wish the Sixers did this or that. It just full bore ahead. And what's nice is that I want the Celtics to win most times. I really do. You can't cover a team for as long as I have and not root for them. And it's good for us. It's good. I want to keep, I wanted our season to go longer than it did. But what's great is that I'm happy when they win, but I don't get sad when they lose, unless it's the last game of the season. So to me, that's the best of both worlds. It's like cheating almost. It's I just get only positive because, when people are upset that the Celtics lost at a buzzer beater, I'm just like, okay, we're moving on. Let me fill in these graphics here. Let's get ready for this show and that. And so, it works out pretty nice. And it helps me, I think, quell some of the, when I'm on Twitter and I see people like really upset Celtics fans, I'm like, look, can I give you guys some perspective? Yeah. I'm a Sixers fan. You guys are fine. Everything's gonna be okay.
Right, they're just like so end of the world out for like the silliest losses at that.
Yeah,
we should lose like at the
really,
tip end at the buzzer, and fans are just on the edge for like the
Fire
next couple
Brad
days.
Stevens.
It's like, Josh, you're killing me.
Man,
it is though. It's every fan base. Every fan base. That it's just, this is the one that we have on our timeline.
That OG Anunoby shot in the playoffs.
Oh man, that was
that one.
That sucked so bad.
That was actually one that did hurt. I just lied. I told you that I don't care when they lose, but that one I was like, ah. But it was, they were up 2-1, and then that one happened, and you're just like, or they were up 2-0 and that happened. You're like, all right, right. I think that's how. What were they? They were up 2-0 when that. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was 2-0. It was game 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, all right. It'd been great to be up 3-0, but it's still 2-1, and then you start thinking like, oh man. Yeah. But if they lose next game, it's 2-2. And then game 7, going into game 7, I was like, oh, I was so mad at that shot. I'm like, oh, if it weren't for that stupid shot.
Yeah.
And Taco was in, they got screwed because the barrier was the court, the dimension. There's usually not that much space.
Yeah.
So Lowry was so far back.
Yeah.
That Taco was completely irrelevant.
Really?
Yeah. Lowry could stand so far back because there were no fans.
Yeah, that's true.
They got completely screwed by that. And there was one other thing. If it was that series or the next series where being in the bubble really like had a negative impact on the Celtics. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, look, they got some bad breaks. Miami was on a mission to lose to the Lakers. And as much as I would have liked the Celtics to make it to the finals, I'm glad that they didn't lose to the Lakers. And I'm not saying they necessarily would have, but that would have sucked. That would have sucked more than losing to the Heat.
That definitely would have hurt.
Absolutely. And the LeBron is on the Lakers too.
Oh,
had it's a double whammy. Double whammy. I can't believe Rondo. It sucks.
I'm so happy for Rondo. I can't even lie.
I'm happy for him and Bradley.
I can't put my fandom aside on that one.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I try to tell people when they ask about Rondo and like Celtics fans. I'm like, look, I still to this day argue with, like, they're maybe not so much now, but like within the past like 3 years, people are still arguing with me that Rondo was the best point guard in the NBA. And I'm like, that's the impact he had on these young Celtics fans who were just becoming fans when that Big Three era started. And he, everyone was liking Pierce and Allen and KG, and Rondo was like the homegrown player, the unsung hero. Exactly. And he was the one that became the all-star towards the end of that era.
Right. I was like 14 when Rondo first made his first all-star team and started legit ascending. And that's when I like really piqued my interest. So it's like I can root against like former Celtics and want them to fail, and like I can poke fun at Terry Rozier and like he or him. But then I see Rondo like doing anything well. It's like he might have like one good game out of like 20. I'm like, yeah. Like,
well,
he's back.
Let me tell you one thing that really pisses me off is, and you're probably one of these people too. I'm just going to judge you right now. The people that say the only reason the Celtics were able to come back and beat the Bulls is because Rondo got hurt 3 years ago in the first round playoff series. And I tell you, he was only good for 1.5 games.
I'm with you. I say that all the time. He was only good for game 2 and maybe bits and pieces of the first game.
Right. And Isaiah, like, his sister died the night before.
Yeah,
exactly.
It was like, and he still scored 30 points. It was like the whole team was screwed up in the head.
So you could see game 1 they were good for stretches, but he was ultimately like pressing the whole game. Mm-hmm. And then you could see game 2 that their mental just wasn't in there, and the Bulls were just unrealistically on fire.
Yeah,
like Brook Lopez was hitting like. Not Brooks. Yeah. Robert Lopez was hitting long jumpers. Like, okay, this is a whole nother. Cut it out.
No, to me it was. And Rondo played a great game and all, but I remember like that night thinking, can't wait to see what Brad does to handle Rondo for next game, for game 3. And then it came out that Rondo broke his hand in practice or whatever. He's probably at altitude, trampoline, park like he was in Boston when he slipped in the shower. But But no, I just remember being like, and everyone's like, oh, the only reason that the Celtics won 4 straight games was that Rondo got hurt. I'm like, come on, the whole season he was trash. He played one good game, and everyone's like, playoff Rondo, playoff Rondo. Look, he's a good player still to this day, but at that time, like, come on.
Yeah, he's such a lazy player at this point in his career. He like turns it on maybe once every other week or so, and then during the playoffs, he finally actually plays within the team. Like Lakers fans couldn't stand him all season long.
I know. Now they love him.
They wanted to trade him so many times.
They did. Then he comes in, like starts hooping against the Rockets, and they like love him.
I know. I don't blame him though, because that's tough. That's like David Krejci and the Bruins, where it was like, God, where are you in the regular season? You're just the worst. Like you're incredibly overpaid. Like, I can't believe you're paying this guy that much money. He makes more money than like Jonathan Taves, Patrick Kane, all these guys, and then the playoff comes and he's Wayne Gretzky, and it's like, whoa, all right. But hockey's a little bit different.
Yeah, but being in the studio up in there with all the former Celtics guys, you're face to face with Tommy, who's a legend. You see Scal, Cedric works there too, right?
Cedric does not. I've met Cedric many times. He's there as a guest for a lot of our shows. He's the radio play-by-play.
He's the radio guy.
But yes, I have met him several times. He's hilarious.
Yeah. So how's Tommy in person?
I mean, he's exactly like you would think. I mean, he's a really old guy that, and he just loves talking about basketball and just stories. And it took about 3 years. So at my desk in our old building in Burlington, I had a little spare chair that just, I don't know why it got left there one day. And so I used to call it my office. Hey, step into my office, have a seat here. And that Tommy just started sitting there because I would always print out his articles and his stats and leave them right there for him. And it took about 3 years for him to realize that I'm always joking, because I would just say like something sarcastic to him, and he would just look at me like, whatever. You could go back to reading. But a really great guy, really super nice. And the stories that he will tell about, like, you just have to say one thing and he just goes off on some crazy story from 1967, selling car insurance here, and then Red Auerbach. I mean, wow. And every time we're like, why aren't we recording this? Yeah. But yeah, Tommy's great. He's set in his ways at his age when it comes to how we do the show and everything. So he's a bit more of like, we have to produce around him sometimes. Just like, well, we can't really do this because Tommy won't bite on that. Scal's a little bit more malleable, but he's also, you know, the analysts are they kind of run the show, or they don't run the show, but like we produce the shows for them. And Draper, the host, just Kyle does whatever we ask. He's amazing. He's by far the MVP, because no matter who the analyst is, it'd be Mannix, it'd be Jackie McMullen, it'd be Tommy Heinsohn and Brian Scalabrine, Kendrick Perkins. He's able to roll with the punches and do whatever we ask. So pretty fortunate that I've been able to work with someone like him and get to, you know, rub elbows with Tommy. And you know, Tommy always believed in Marcus Smart's shooting. He said that he taught him a trick where he would put a piece of tape from the basket to the line and just watch your feet, make sure they're landing 1 foot on one side of the line. And look, I'm going to give Tommy credit for Marcus becoming a good shooter.
Oh, love Tommy. How's Perk in person?
So Perk, I've only met virtually. We did a couple Zooms for Celtic Census, but you know, I know what you mean. Perk is great. He's again another guy that's exactly the same as you would think. He is always on. He's clowning around. He is a lot of fun. And again, he made our shows like.
Yeah, he's really good when he's on with you guys. But but I think it's just an ESPN like thing that they tell their like on air guys to act a certain way or because like with you guys, he's really like fun and natural and chill. Then he gets to ESPN and he's just like firing off tapes and
yeah. I'm not a big
fan. I know, yeah, he's super takey. But
like I wanted you guys to hire him because he was like say he's really good on air, which like he had the when he first called the game, he gave Tice or Perk Point, I think.
Yeah. Oh, so funny. I mean, so funny. I remember saying, like, I love Perk. I love when he's on, but this might get old. This might, the audience might, they might get tired of it. And after a couple more, I'm just like, nope, get him on every game. This is incredible.
Yeah.
So the things that he says, he called for one of our, we did the Celtics Classic games when the pandemic first hit. We were just airing old games, and we would get players from those games to come on, and Scal would interview them. And I was behind the scenes watching, and he said he was on one of the 08 games, and he said, Pau Gasol, he was softer than a hot Twinkie. And I was just like, I've never heard that, but I was dying. I was texting one of the other guys, and I'm like, did you hear the hot Twinkie? He's got some good, they're perkisms. They're phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Have you met any of the current players, like in passing or during like specials y'all have done? Like, have you met any of them like face to face?
Marcus Smart, I did an interview with this past year about memes, which was fun.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I met them all at some point in passing, but Terry and Mark, when he was here, because Terry was on post up, we had to deal with him, so he came in a couple of times. We did the spaghetti ranch sandwiches, spaghetti ranch and sugar sandwiches.
Yeah, I remember that.
I went and I got I went to Wegmans and I got all the ingredients, and I did not eat them, but he did say that I did a poor job assembling it. But, so I'm trying to think who else on the current team. Like Jalen came in. I don't think I've ever met Tatum in person, but and the other guys just you shake their hand or whatever. But Marcus is the only one that I actually sat down and I interviewed.
Oh, okay. And you're a big part of bringing like the online Celtics culture to the broadcast of that. Like, I think you y'all were airing memes after every game. You showed them the Marcus and asked him if you'd ever seen them. And like I busted out laughing when he said that he actually has seen a lot of the stuff we tagged him in.
Yeah.
I know he's online. He's way more online than people think.
Absolutely.
And he embraces it. I remember he did for his charity. He did an AMA, and people asked him. He's like, I'll answer any question you ask me if you post it with a screen grab of your donation to my charity. And someone asked him what gave him two options for like medieval like torture.
Yeah, the siege weapon. He was like on the guillotine every time.
Yeah, and he like added his own, and I was like, oh my goodness, he's really leaning into this, and
he's awesome.
And he again, this is why when people bring up Marcus Smart trades, I get it. Like, you can't be so attached to players, but man, he fits this culture.
He is so fun.
Great leader for the team. He, any team would love him, but the way he just dives on the floor and stuff like that, he's just a perfect fit. And the way he just embraces the fans and the weirdness, and just goes with it. I mean, a lot of guys are just like, what is that? I mean, I showed the first time I would show him to Scal, he was just like, NBA players aren't gonna like seeing that. They're not gonna like seeing their head photoshopped on Satan. Like, no, he's Jesus. He's crossing over Satan. So.
Man, if we ever lose Marcus Smart, I think
that'll break my heart, man.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be completely honest. I when we lost Paul Pierce and KG, I kind of knew it was time. So that didn't hurt as much. When Horford left, like, I'm still hurt over that. To be completely honest, I'm still hurt. But if we lose Marcus Smart, I might fly to Boston myself.
Right.
So I was see what's up with Danny Ainge, man. Because
I was fully prepared to root for the Pelicans part time during like the whole Anthony Davis stuff last season, when it was so set in stone that Smart, Tatum, and Jalen were gone. I was ready to order my Pelicans jerseys for the three of them.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. But I think with Marcus, it really would depend on the return. Like, the issue is his salary is like that perfect size that can match with every deal, and
it's one of literally the best deals in the league. He's one of the few guys you can say who was perfectly paid, or even underpaid to an extent, seeing how valuable to the team he actually is.
100%.
Like Marcus would have asked for the 20 mil, so I wouldn't be bad at it.
Right? No, look, Danny did it again with Jalen as well. That deal that Jalen signed at the beginning of last season, like right before, I remember being so shocked that I was like, wow, it's crazy that Jalen did that and he didn't go to restricted free agency. And I looked at the numbers and I'm like, look, 20 million may seem like a lot, but like this is projected. It's not for what you've done; it's what you're gonna do. And boy, that is a bargain now. Same with Marcus, and he did it with Bradley. He did it with Crowder. He's good at identifying guys that are ready to exceed a certain number.
He's gonna have to pay Tatum the full max whenever they work out the free agency king spot. That's a given.
I don't think that he's gonna be able to get that at all.
No, he won't have any problem with that one.
No.
And the Jalen deal, I say all the time, it's like I think like maybe a month into the season, I was like, this guy was gonna get a max if he waited.
Yeah.
Then I look at teams that always fit him, like the Hawks or Grizzlies. I was like, oh man.
I was afraid
they need that too.
I was afraid of the Hawks getting him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he loves. I tell you what, though, he loves his hometown, but I think he's so valuable in Boston, not just as a player, but like as a ambassador for the city. I think that he can do real like he could change hearts and minds in Boston, I think, on race issues and stuff like that. He really, and I was obviously not alive when Bill Russell was, but he just reminds me of that kind of ambassador for the game and for this city specifically. I think he could play a valuable role here. I want to like text him. I don't have his number. Be like, I love that you go to Atlanta, but like Boston needs you too. Like you could really move the needle here in Boston in terms of that stuff. And I think that they're so lucky to have him.
Absolutely.
What a leader, what a young, and I think that's what a lot of the issue was with Kyrie was that Jalen was ready to be a leader. Yeah. And he had 9 guys on the team that were vets ahead of him on the totem pole. And then they're all gone. And now he's 24 and he's like one of the oldest guys on the team.
Yeah.
Or at least the longest tenured.
And that's why I love the relationship between him and Smart. So I think they're kind of both like dogs in their own special way. So it's like when you like during the Heat series, when everybody's like, "Oh my God, the locker room's imploding. They're in there. Those two are butting heads and doing that. They hate each other." It's like, no. It's like it's a good thing because they're not gonna come out of that sour towards each other the next day. They're gonna come out of that whole exchange, shaking hands and dapping up in practice and going right back to business.
Yep, 100%. And that's what that would not have happened the year before.
That wouldn't have happened last year.
Kyrie and Morris.
Exactly. You need that accountability. Like Marcus can scream his head off about missing a rotation and he'll be like, all right, cool. Bicker back and then go back out there, get back to work. And Jalen could scream at him about not giving him the ball when Brad is like calling his number for a play. And Marcus is like, okay, cool, whatever. Back to business, like right after. There's no really lingering effect that you might see later on that same game or later on the games to follow.
Right. And I think it's a great mix because I don't think Tatum doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to be like a rah-rah. I mean, I think he's going to be fine. But he is more of like an Al Horford mentality where, maybe more of a talker than that, but just really kind of like
just
simple,
the on-floor guy, the guy when they're just doing stupid. Eventually, Brad's going to be like, Tatum, go fix that. Then he'll go and do Tatum things. Like when we were imploding, he'd look at Al and be like, yo, Al, go do something. And I'll be like, cool.
Right. Yeah. 100%. 100%. He's that steadying force. He's only getting better. It's a good mix. It really is. And that's why when everyone was so upset that they lost to the Heat in Eastern Conference Finals, we got to listen to the talk radio just about, Brad Stevenson over his head. Danny failed the team. Why didn't they trade 3 first-round picks for the guy off the bench? And it's just like, look, they have a system. They have a process how they do things. They have a philosophy that Ainge never, ever, ever deviates from. He does not lose trades. He doesn't overpay for role players that are heading into free agency. He's not going to, because then the next time he wants a role player, then the teams are like, well, you traded a first-round pick for Alec Burke or whatever, or Glenn Robinson the third. So that time, so why don't you do it this time? So he just has a philosophy where he's like, I'm never going to do that because I don't want to lose that leverage.
Right.
And
Right.
it's worked out. And could they have used another guy off the bench? Sure. Would it have mattered in the grand scheme? It's especially when we're talking about the bench. I always am like, man, the bench is just, it's important to have one or two guys, and then it really doesn't matter in the playoffs because you're playing your number one. You're playing your top guys for most of the game. So
Sure.
I was just not really worried about it. And I think that, Hayward's injury kind of screwed them.
Yeah.
Kemba not being 100% kind of screwed them. But look, let's not forget, they got great minutes out of Brad Wanamaker.
Yeah.
I don't think we can go a full podcast without mentioning that. I know that I was a little bit critical of him in the past. I think we all have been. But I think, if he doesn't come back to the Celtics, I tell you, there's a team in Philadelphia that could use his services.
Yeah.
He's from Philly too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who are some guys that you think that the Celtics will end up looking into getting this offseason?
I don't know exactly who, but I can tell you the type of player. They need a scorer off the bench. I don't know what they can do in terms of bigs, because Tyson, Cantor are under contract, and I don't know what you can do. Like, how much of an upgrade can you get is to make a difference? Like, you would have to trade something of value to get something back, and is it going to be enough?
Right.
Whereas I think if they were just healthy, if they had a healthy Gordon, I think that Bam Adebayo may not have been as Gordon Hayward's not going to guard Bam, but if he was healthy, Bam may not have mattered as much.
Yeah.
Great play. So, and I think Robert Williams, it's tough to bank on him, but
he shows some real signs during the playoffs.
He is the player that they need. He is the exact guy that they need. And look, I don't know if you can see this. Nice little poster there.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
I'm a believer in the Time Lord. I think that he is he's got some natural ability that you can't teach. And I think that all of his issues are the only remedy for them. The only way to get better is to play more.
To play more, yeah. His
injuries really, really hurt him, obviously, but they hurt his development too, also his body. But and I think that if they can just get him healthy, he seems like, just seeing the interviews that he did with Abby during the playoff run and the bubble, he's just like a different kid. He's totally mature. Like the first interview when he was late for the phone interview after they drafted him. I remember, I don't know if it was one of the Celtics PR guys like, we're gonna have to delay this till 1:00 because we can't find Robert. And it was like, and just hearing him talk, it was just like, it just was like he sounded like a kid, which is he was, but now he sounds like a professional athlete. He sounds like a pro. He was talking about when Abby asked about his social, the social justice stuff. He's like, it's about voting, but it's not just that. It's about, I'm having all my friends and family fill out their census. He just was like, you could tell that he really grew as a person. And I think that matters for a player like him because it's so mental. He's physically, he's incredible. Like, he's an incredible specimen. And he's good at a lot of things. It's the choices that he makes on the court that will ultimately decide whether he's a good player or not. But I think if you're the front office, you probably went into last year hoping that at one point he played himself into the starting lineup. But the injury prevented that. And I think this year, again, don't be surprised if it's those three guys again, if it's Cantor, Tyson, and Robert Williams, and that it's just kind of let's fight it out, see who's the better player, and hopefully Robert wins that because he seems like the future at that position for them.
Right, and he was he was like really valuable against the Raptors too, because we all knew that was a series that Cantor didn't like physically capable of playing, given all his deficiencies defensively, and then Rob, despite him kind of maybe timing out on that end every so often, he still added a boost. He left Ibaka open too much, but that's whatever. He'll learn. But for the most part, he was making those key passes and grabbing rebounds and blocking shots here and there.
And even
getting
when
out in transition. So,
and even when he was leaving guys open, he still contested, and he's such a freak and so long and so athletic that he was impacting shots by late contests. And especially smaller guys, like if you got switched on to Fred VanVleet, how are you going to shoot against that? You're tiny. Exactly. He's like my height and shooting against a brick wall in front of you, coming at you really fast too. So I think that I was really encouraged with what I saw with him in the bubble, in the seeding games and in the playoffs. So again, it's just when you're building a team, it's hard for a guy that's missed so many games in his short career because of little injuries here and there that keep adding up. I think you hope that he gets a little bit tougher, maybe, fight through some of those things. I think the hip injury wasn't something he could have fought through. But, it just felt like every time he hit the ground, he was slow to get up, in his early days, like Romeo, where it's like every time Romeo goes up for a layup, it's like, all right, he's out for 2 weeks. And you never really got to see what he was capable of, but we'll see. But again, I to answer your question, I think they need a scorer, someone that can come in. And I think everyone kind of thought, oh, Carson Edwards can be like the Lou Williams. Well, I'm a Sixers fan. Lou Williams was not Lou Williams when they drafted him in the second round. He took years and years and years to develop into that player that accepts that role. You don't go from being the alpha on an NCAA tournament team who's just on SportsCenter every night because you dropped 40 points in a Sweet 16 game or whatever it was he did at Purdue, to being totally fine and comfortable with playing as a seventh man off the bench coming in to score. Like, that's not easy. So you can see his game and say, yes, it looks like a Lou Williams type ability, but it's so much about the mentality, about the approach, about being able to come in and just every time you touch the ball, score. So they need somebody that's ready to do that, because I don't think Carson is.
I think Romeo can be that guy if he gets a clean slate of health, relatively early next year. He can maybe, whenever they start the season, he could possibly be ready by camp.
And I tell you,
can get PT done preseason, maybe work his way up from a 5 to 10 minute guy to a regular rotation piece.
Well, I think what Marcus had, and Romeo's not near Marcus's level, but what Marcus always had, the reason why he was able to become a good shooter at the NBA level is he was anchored to the court with his defensive play. And I think that Romeo has definitely shown signs of being a really, really good defender. And Brad will play him. Like Jalen, his rookie year, got yanked so quickly out of the game. He was like, look, you're going to learn to play defense the way I want you to, or else you're not going to play. I don't care where you were drafted. And I think with Romeo, I mean, we saw Romeo was playing, we subbed in the first quarter in Eastern Conference. Was it the finals or the second round? Where it was like really shocking that he was getting early minutes and stuff like that. But Brad trusts him on defense, and he
rotates really well defensively. He's a long, athletic player too, and so he can hound guys on, off the ball. Then he gets a good slasher. He doesn't need the ball offensively.
Yep, and that'll give him a chance to develop into the offensive player that he'll eventually hopefully become, because you need that skill that'll keep you on the court. And I think Brad's trusting him on the defensive end will mean that he'll just by default get more minutes.
Absolutely.
That's why I think Gordon Hayward is one of the most essential players for Romeo. Between Hayward and Smart, I think those are the guys that he needs to really stay with. That's why I don't want Hayward to go.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone, like, the thing with Hayward is that it's all about what you're getting. I mean, to make a move just to make a move. I mean, Gordon was awesome this year.
For sure.
So good. And it was he was a guy, an all-star, former all-star, who signed a max deal and was okay being the third or fourth option on a team with a bunch of young guys. Yeah. Like, that's not, you cannot underestimate how important that is to have a guy of his skill level, of his stature in the league, accept that role.
And he excelled in it too.
Yeah. And to score
those were similar to his all-star numbers, just less scoring.
Right. Right. He was great. He was really good. Because remember, they had 3 guys averaging 20 points a game in the beginning of the season, the first couple months, and it was Hayward. It wasn't Jalen.
Yeah, before Jalen was around like 15, 14, 16 to start the season.
Yeah.
Then that's when I want to say it was when Hayward got hurt. Then he finally took off as scorer. And then when Hayward got back, he stayed the course too, if not got better. So
I know, and again, like, we can't underestimate the good mix that they have, and anything they make. And I wonder if Danny's a little gun shy after what happened with Kyrie, where it's like, look, on paper, you made some incredible deals. That you got Hayward, you got you to add to Al Horford, and you traded an injured Isaiah Thomas for Kyrie freaking Irving, and it should have been a championship team, or at least in the finals. And the mix, again, they were hurt. They got those freak injury from Hayward, excuse me, in the first 5 minutes of his career, and then that next year with Kyrie just being a disaster in that locker room. That mix really matters, especially when you've got guys that are pushing for playing time. And boy, that locker room. And we joked about hey, well, the Celtics might not be so good this year, but at least they'll like each other, and that was kind of like an insult.
Yeah.
Because they signed Kemba, but it was no, that mattered. It really did.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You don't want to screw with that, and I think that you make some changes on the margins. If you can get a better backup point guard, because I don't think you can count. I think ideally it would be Marcus, but Kemba, you just don't know with that knee. You got to have, because if Marcus is starting, you need a better backup point guard. As good as Brad Wanamaker was, he's a great third point guard.
Yes.
I think a good solid can start games if you need him 2-point guard.
Yeah, and maybe Tremont develops into a consistent player this season too. So
looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, we'll see with him. Definitely. I thought that was the plan. I thought let Wanamaker's contract run out, and hopefully convert Tremont to a regular contract. But we'll see. I don't know if they saw enough from him. He's so little. That's the problem.
Yeah, and he got 3 first-round picks, and make Magic got a wonderful, hopefully.
I honestly don't even think we need to use those picks.
I want at least 2 of them traded.
Yeah.
But there's the thing, Danny won't trade him unless it's a deal. The problem is that everybody knows he's got 3 picks and he doesn't have the roster spots. So they're going to be like, cool, let me get that first-round pick. I'll give you a second. And Danny's not going to do that. Danny will just to spite everyone, he'll take them. He'll use them. But remember, was it 2016 when he had a bunch of picks and he took Yabusele and Zizic?
Yeah. He drafted, stashed them so we could sign Horford.
Yeah, so stash, that's great, but draft good players. Don't draft average just because you can stash. That's my thing. Make sure that you're getting guys that, or at least, I think Zizic was a guy that at least retained value before they traded him again. I think he was when Cleveland traded for him, they probably thought he was going to be a good player, which
I think there are only 3 guys that I can honestly say that I could truly see not coming back next season. Would be Wanamaker, Cantor, and Ojale. Those are the only guys that I could say that I would be comfortable if we needed to move someone. Those are the only guys I'm comfortable with moving with maybe a draft pick to get some shooter.
Yeah,
but outside of that, I don't think we need to do anything.
Yeah, just draft well, get guys healthy, develop a couple young guys, get Grant more minutes.
Yeah, Grant's going to be a big offseason for him because if he gets his shot to look, he was making them. Season. But after starting so bad, but I think that if he becomes a really consistent shooter from deep, that opens up so much of his game. And he's got to work on finishing against length because you could watch. I mean, he couldn't score against NBA centers. In college, that's all he did was score down in the paint. But he's smart and he's so good at the little things. He's like a forward Marcus Smart. I always said that. Like,
I was about to say that. He's a big
it's the setting screens too. I remember in summer league, like, he had like 6 points, 3 rebounds, and a block or something. And I was like, he had a great game. Did you see all the screens he set? And it was summer league, but it was like that was popping off the screen, and like just to watch him, just like dudes were just falling, like evaporating when they hit him. So, and I think there's real value in that. He just needs to not be a negative on offense, which, he's got a good head on his shoulders. He's, he knows what to do. He seems like a hard worker. I mean, look at his body, he's in incredible shape. I think a kid like that is someone that you bet on and you invest in, and I think that he'll be a great, at least rotation player for them this coming season.
For sure.
Definitely. Appreciate it. Well, all right, Matt, to close out every show when we have a guest, we do a top 5 segment where I pick a couple of questions specific to the guests we have on and get your top 5 on those topics.
Let's do it.
So here's 3 especially for you. We always start with the generic basketball question. So let me get your top 5 Sixers players that you've been a fan of since you started watching. Your top 5 favorites.
All right, we got to go Iverson, number 1. Iguodala, Iguodala, I guess, would still be number 2, just because he was in my heart longer. And then go Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons is right there. And let's think. Might have to go with. I'll just throw it back to the old school and go Dr. J. Even though I never saw him play, I was too little. I did meet him once. Really cool.
Oh,
good human being.
Awesome. Cool. Philly guys, let me get your top 5 favorite artists from Philadelphia. They can be rappers, singers, pop rock stars, anything.
Will Smith. No, just kidding. No, he's on the list. But number 1, the Roots. The Roots are by far. They're one of my favorite bands ever. I'll go the Roots, Boyz II Men. I grew up listening to them. I sang some of them for some talent shows. Not gonna lie, I'm glad that there's no video of that. And we'll go Meek Mill because he had the great anthem for the Eagles winning the Super Bowl against the Patriots.
I was just listening to that the other day.
I'm going to throw Will Smith in there just because I'm running out of names that I can think of. You put me on the spot here. And who else is from Philly? I can't think. I'm drawing a blank.
Jill Scott?
I can't think. I'm sure that there's a bunch that I'm forgetting, but I can't think of them right now. So that's it.
Derek threw out Jill Scott out there.
Oh, no, Jill Scott. Perfect.
Jill from Philly.
Yeah. Her version of You Got Me is better than the Erykah Badu one.
Okay.
That is a take.
Spicy.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I saw it perform it at Veterans Stadium.
Awesome. And the last question, get your top 5 favorite moments as a sports fan in Philly.
All right, so I guess I got to go. I think the Phillies winning. Now, Eagles winning the Super Bowl because I watched that with my daughter. That was like a real fun experience. Then I'll go Phillies World Series, even though I watched that by myself in my apartment in Boston because there was a rain delay when I was in Philly, and I had to come back to go to work, so I couldn't be down in Philly for that. Number 3, I'm going. The Flyers won Game 7, and I think it was the first round against the Toronto Maple Leafs in overtime with Jeremy Renner goal in the 2004 Stanley Cup Finals. It was with all my friends, and it was just that moment where you're with a bunch of your buddies, and you're just like, the whole series was on the line. And Sammy Kapanen got a dirty hit from Darcy Tucker and was like mushy, brain melting on the ice, like swimming all over the place. They hooked him into onto the bench. Jeremy Renner comes out, scores the game winner in overtime. It was just one of the best feelings. I want to say the Sixers getting winning the lottery to get Ben Simmons on May 17th of 2016, because that was the night that my wife went into contractions for her second child. You notice how I can get these
Right.
things together. But it was just so nerve-wracking that whole night. I mean, my wife was having these contractions, and I'm like all nervous about the Sixers because that matters in situations like that. And so that's on there. And then I got to go, Iverson stepping over Lou in game one of those NBA finals against the Lakers. That was just a nuts game because Lou was pestering him all night. And they were David and the Lakers were glad. That was the only game the Lakers lost that entire playoffs. Was that game?
Yeah, that's insane.
Sixers. My sister, who doesn't care about sports at all, I remember her knocking on my door like, "Are you watching this game? It was in overtime in LA. It was so late." It was a big moment. So that would be up there too.
Awesome. How you feel about the way the media up there kind of treated AI on his way out?
Oh, they suck. I mean, it's Philly. I'm not really sure how it is now, but because I've been gone for so long. But it really was at the time that I was living there. It was like they were trying to be a part of it. They were trying to be more than just reporters. It was like they were personalities. They were abrasive, and it was combative. I mean, the fans. Let us throw the batteries.
Right.
The media doesn't need to. But but it wasn't all of them. It was just a couple of them, because there were some really great journalists on there. Look, Stephen A. was writing for the Inquirer when I was growing up, and I always liked him.
That's crazy.
I think he was. I think he slandered McNabb. I want to say, and so I was a little off on that. But now I look back, I'm like, oh. Now we know what we know about McNabb. I'm like, good. I'm Team Stephen A. But it is what it is. I know that Iverson's come back and he's embraced a lot of those guys now. So he seems to have mended the fences. And I don't think it's as bad as it was. I don't think the media landscape could ever be like that anymore. Because newspapers just look. You need the ability to go cover these games, and if you're going to piss off players, they're going to limit that. And
for sure.
Exactly. You a TO guy for his brief stint there?
I was until the push-up or the sit-ups in the driveway. I remember seeing Drew Rosenhaus on SportsCenter, where it was like a week after the Super Bowl. I was at the gym and in college and seeing Rosenhaus demands new deal or whatever. I'm like, they just traded for T.O. It's like, what the heck? He's got more years on his deal. I didn't understand how it was back then. But yeah, I soured on him real quick. But boy, I love that. He had a heroic Super Bowl.
Oh,
he was playing on one leg and still just was a beast. But he was divisive. Really screwed up that locker room. But I had a T.O. jersey.
Dope. We appreciate you coming on with us, bro.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for letting me talk your ears off for this long.
Anytime. Great. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys.
You take care, man.